Hi everyone. Welcome along to Endless Celts Podcast. Sorry, I have to apologise. It was all really jumpy on my end there, and I'm
Was
going,
it?
what's happening here?
I
Aye, but
was like,
it's all right now.
I
It's
was like, see
fine.
if I
But
got his host in there.
I know I was like, what the fuck's going on here? Hi, welcome along to Endless Celts Podcast. Apologies for that wee hiccup there. I hope everybody's well who's watching, and I'm joined tonight by our Stephen and our Francis. How we doing tonight, boys?
All good, mate. Looking forward to the chatting about the best game I've ever seen at Easter Road. Can't wait to get stuck into it. But yeah, we're here going to talk Celtic again and have a couple of disagreements like we always do, and I'm looking forward to it.
Aye, most likely. What about yourself, Franny?
Aye, all good, all good. Had a nice, easy day at work. As you know, we've been bought out of a company and they were swapping all our software. And my laptop didn't start working until 4 o'clock, so we ran a bit losing time. It was good. But it's an easy day.
That's ideal. Aye.
So I just kind
Time
of
for
sat,
nothing.
I just sat there all day.
Aye,
I sat there doing nothing all day. Did anything.
that does
Company
you.
time, doing nothing.
That's
Love it.
that sort of
What you can do,
coincides
mate.
with what the Celtic players done on Saturday. Nothing.
I
But we'll just on that note, we'll just get right into it. I'll just come to yourself first, Stephen. Obviously, we played Hibs on Saturday. Just the usual, a brief sort of overview of the game and how you felt it went. Sort of, I've had the gist of it in the group chat, but hit us with it. What did you think?
Well, first of all, I'm going to hit you with the Super 6
Oh, aye,
scoreboard,
sorry, aye.
the leaderboard. So
know.
coming in at first place is Kieran. Second place, Mark Robertson. Third place, still in the bout, Anthony Dunn. Williams climbing up to fourth. Kevin Gallagher fifth. Stephen Coulthard sixth. Jamie McElduff seventh. Alistair Jack is eighth, and Joe Finley is ninth. I can't see who rounds off the top 10, but it's pretty competitive towards the top five there. And Ross, there's a weekday Super 6, isn't there, this week?
Aye, there
Yeah.
is. I think it's Wednesday night. It's to be in for. Is that right, Franny?
I think so. I
I think it's Wednesday.
so-
Aye.
think so.
It's Carabao
Everyone-
Cup games, so it probably will be Wednesday. Aye.
Everyone get involved with that and keep that leaderboard nice and tight. And hopefully maybe Mark gets on top or whatever to claw back them points. There's a big deficit between the top two, but I'm sure that can be clawed back. And then finally, join us, as we talked about last week, on the TikTok journey. There's a few videos up already. As you can see, the numbers are quite tiny. They've gathered thousands of views, albeit the followers don't kind of replicate that. But if you press the follow button, join us. Well, there'll be all laughs, there'll be disagreements, us arguing, having drinks, having fun, a bit of crack for everybody. This community's grew on YouTube. Grow the community on our TikTok channel, and we'll greatly appreciate that. But in terms of the game itself, jeez, I mean, you asked me for a summary. I think I can summarize it in one word: shite. that's to be honest. I mean, it was a game I was really looking forward to. Obviously, coming off the back of the fantastic performance against Atletico Madrid in the Champions League, I thought we were going to be full of energy, enthusiasm, playing attacking football. Easter Road was a lovely surface. They had it looking well, but we just didn't get going. And obviously, a big fixture was Rio Tate missing, but Bernardo came in against Atletico and did well, so it wasn't really thinking about that kind of thing in terms of injuries and stuff. But I mean, the summary of it in my end is it was probably one of the worst football performances I've seen from Celtic in a long, long time. And that goes from a high against Atletico to an extreme low. And like sometimes we know coming off these Champions League games, you can hit that dip. I mean, you're going and you're playing Atletico against world-class players. You're going to Easter Road. No disrespect. You're playing against a team who are nowhere near that level. And you've got to manage that kind of expectation and coming from here right back down again to domestic level. But as Roger said, there's no excuse for it. You can't use the European hangover and stuff like that. I just thought we were lacking ideas, we were lacking energy, lacking speed in our movement, and all in all, it was a really poor game.
I can't really disagree with that. I think it was a very laboured and lacklustre. All the descriptives for sort of slow and just a really mundane game of football. Probably came to life more probably in the last 20-25 minutes. But I mean, for me, we never done enough to win the game. Hibs didn't really want to win the game. They came and played for a draw and they got their draw. But in the end, probably Celtic they got what they deserved. What was your sort of summation of the game?
Similar to Steve's, I think you can just sum it up pretty easy. Like it was a boring game, and I know Rodgers he can't come out and use the excuse of a European hangover, but just had all the hallmarks of that type of performance over it. Just, I think it was yourself that said it in the group chat, Ross. It just was Celtic were showing signs of a team that gave everything on the Wednesday night, really, and just like they didn't have much left to give, so to speak. But it's an excuse fans are allowed to use, but it's not an excuse that really the team can use. But I think it was a very, very boring game. It's going to happen. Maybe we're thinking it's the worst game we've seen, just simply how well we played on Wednesday, because I would argue the Kilmarnock game we were probably worse than what we were against Hibs, I think. But
the League Cup game?
I would say we were poor that day as well. We were probably just equally as poor on Saturday there, to be fair. But I think it's, as I say, we're all, not saying we're not in the high anymore, but we were all very much in the high the way we had been playing and things like that leading up to the Atletico Madrid game. You put in a really fantastic performance that night, and then that happens. But that will happen throughout. I think there'll be not many of the performances, but you might see another couple of the games during the season. Like I say, what was it, our 7th away game out of 10 in the league.
Yeah,
it kind of was. It probably was going to happen. What sooner or later that type of performance. As I say, it's not to say it's it's obviously not acceptable, but it's no one I think we need to be really too concerned about. I will pick the bones out during this podcast, but I think in the main it's not one we need to really be over analysing, if you like, if that makes sense.
Aye, no, it does make sense. I mean, a Celtic they're the type of team now, obviously domestically, where that performance has happened. They've dropped points there, but they're quite capable now of going on a 7, 8, 9, 10, even 12 game unbeaten run, certainly, or a winning streak. So listen, there's no, you're not panicking as such. But you don't want to have too many of the days, whether it be off the back of a European performance or not. Just sort of going into the game a wee bit. There's not, like you said, there's not a great deal to talk about, Stephen. But we had in the first half, we had a couple of chances. There was the one for we sort of pressed Hibs quite high. We done that early on in the game anyway, and Hibs were trying to play out for the back, and they've just not got the capabilities to do that. They gave it away. I can't mind, somebody got the shot off and then it came back out and Palma got a shot off. But I mean, that was probably as close as we came. But then obviously Alistair Johnston had to come off. Wait, that was an absolute doozy, by the way. They'll be able to get back up for it. I'd have still been lying there the now. But obviously Ralston came on. In terms of, obviously, he's come into the game. He's not played a lot recently. What did you think of his performance just on the whole?
Well, before I go on that one, I wanted to come to the comments just quickly. Alistair Jack, that's not wet the bed, lads. Celtic 67, they're professional athletes. They shouldn't be tired after 2 days rest. I totally agree. Jed Thomas, guys, let's not kid ourselves. That team should have beaten Hibs, as Alistair said. Hopefully it's the kick up the arse we need. The game on Wednesday will not be easy against St Mirren. 100% agree. Plunge McNugget, Hibs were poor and we couldn't take advantage. Yeah, I mean, I took a lot of hope from the game. I watched them play against Rangers the week previous, and Nick Montgomery kind of stuck to the same tactics in terms of the 4-4-2. They were trying to play from the back, like you said. I thought we didn't take advantage of, as you rightly said, Ross. Their capabilities are quite. I mean, they're not high in terms of what they can do with the ball. They're not technical. Ellie Yuan on the left causes a few problems in the game. Martin Boyle with his speed, but you mentioned chances, and when you said it to me in the first half, there we had a few. I can't remember them, and I don't know if it's because I've had a total mind blank, but I do remember there was
Palmer
a point.
It was like they volleyed it into the ground, and it kind of
and then was there one where Marshall palmed it to the left, the right hand side as well? It was like a scrummage in the 6-yard line. McGregor, there was a few opportunities, but they weren't even half chances, in my opinion. Do you know what I mean? We barely created any clear-cut opportunities, and that for me was poor in my opinion. But you mentioned Ralston, mate. Oh my god! And I was scratching my eye the side of my head there because I'm trying to just relax, get in the zen again. But look, Alistair Johnson, right back, he's a cut above him easily, levels above him, and him coming off is obviously a big blow. And like you said, if that was Tyson Fury, he still would have won the boxing match, getting back up from that. Do you know what I mean? Well, one of them ones. But look, Ralston, he's just what is it? The bricky they call him. He's just tough. He's hard. He's nothing flashy about him, mate. And I think when we're calling on the likes of Ralston to come in, it's like. It goes back to, I know we're going to touch upon it, so I don't want to go into it too much, but it always, people point back to the recruitment, what we should have done better, Ralston's levels below. I mean, we should be bringing on players to match the level we're at, not drop down levels. And if you look at the Atletico team, and look, it's different, 100% different, but they're bringing on players who are matching levels already on the park. They're not dropping with their subs. I mean, we're bringing on Ralston, who, in my opinion, shouldn't be at the club. I know he had a great resurgence under Postecoglou, but effectively from that, he's done really nothing in a Celtic shirt. And I'll let you mention other people who come on as well. But yeah, I mean, you get a steady performance from him, mate, and that's about it. That's about it for me with him. It took my head, and he's still there.
I mean, there was nothing flashy. There was nothing spectacular about it. It was just sort of wanted to just bring him up because he hasn't played in recent weeks, and just get your thoughts on what you thought. Or how he done in the game. I'll just put the same question to yourself, Ranny, on Ralston, what you thought of his performance.
I thought it was poor, but I mean, you could label that everybody pretty much came on the park, to be fair. I
love that. I love that. I'm poor.
In fairness, you could say that about the majority of the team that played in Saturday, and who the subs that came on. It just was one of the games where nobody really turned up. But and to sort of defend Ralston, I think even myself, even last season, not necessarily talking about Ralston, sorry, but when we were talking about players that hadn't played it as much, we can't expect them to actually put a performance in. So it's one of the ones where you've kind of got it. Can you cut Ralston maybe a wee bit of slack because he hasn't featured a lot just simply because of how good Alistair Johnson is. So it's. I say Ralston isn't the best player in the world. In an ideal world, I know what you're saying, Stephen, there shouldn't be a massive drop-off. But
it's huge, mate. It's not just tiny. It's huge.
I would disagree saying it's huge. It's not. I mean, I think it's noticeable. But realistically, I don't see us ever having two Alistair Johnsons. I just don't see how you keep that level. Yes, I would love it, but
you can't keep them happy.
I just don't see how you can. I just didn't see, and I know some folk might argue saying, "Well, that's what happens when you're at a big club," and to an extent it is. But that's, as we keep saying, Celtic are a big club in name, but geographically, we'll no get guys like that to come to Celtic and maybe sit on the bench. You've seen it with like Giakoumakis. Guy said he wasn't willing to sit on the bench. So he obviously wanted to move on. So for me, Ralston I think he's an honest enough player. Can we do better? Of course we can. But to get the level that maybe everybody, including myself, wants is sort of a backup, or then maybe Alistair Johnson becomes backup. It's not going to happen, is it? It's not going to happen.
Listen, I agree with you, Frank.
Ralston wasn't great, but as I say, a lot of them weren't great.
Aye, but listen, we're sort of getting into the squad sort of depth there. We're going to get into that. We'll just stick to the game for now. So we'll move on for that. Ralston will come up in the conversation, I'm sure, again. But you've sort of covered it fairly well there. I'll just come back to you, Franny. Obviously, getting into the second half, it's not really changed much. It's still slow. It's still predictable. Hibs have got their 2 banks of 4. They're quite comfortable. And then we make a couple of substitutions and stuff. Forrest comes on. Mikey Johnston comes on. And I have to say that when they came on, it did start to open up a bit. You could say that's maybe because they're fresher. They didn't play as many minutes, if any at all, on against Atletico previous midweek. But for me, I'll come to you in Mikey Johnston. I thought for me he had a couple of moments, couple of alright moments. He had a shot, he made the keeper, forced the keeper into a save, but for the most part, didn't beat his man, gave the ball away, ran it out. So frustrating, man. I was absolutely apoplectic, going mental at the telly. Sharon's like, you need to calm down, you're going to give yourself a heart attack. I was like, Mikey Johnston's back in the team, that's all it is. What did you think? I just couldn't hack it.
I mean, I'm very, very similar to you, and it's maybe a wee bit unfair in Mikey Johnston because I've gone with a sort of a prejudgment on the guy that any bad thing he does, I'm jumping on it. But again, I thought he did inject some life. He did get by his man a couple of times, but I think one of the first things he done, which didn't help him for how I sort of seen his performances. He done a nice wee sort of Jenkins cut inside and hot a shot out for a shy. And I was like, well, that just summed up.
The throw-in? Oh my God.
It's unbelievable, man.
I went out for a throw-in and I was like, that's Mikey Johnston there for me. In my opinion, that's Mikey Johnston right there. It's either that or he's injured. And it's just, I don't know, maybe I'm a wee bit harsh for treating the guy, but when he came on, I was like, this is just 0-0 written error. This is one of them. We've sacked it. No, I've not sacked it, but I mean, it was like, what we doing here? Why Mikey Johnston's coming on? What is happening here? What parallel universe am I living in? But him and Forrest, in fairness, injected a wee bit of life, and Forrest was really unlucky not to score. It was one of the ones, like the one where he hit the bar. You're like, he's got an absolute great connection on it, but a wee bit he's gone, if only you just scuffed it a wee bit, it would have probably hit the underside of the bar or just hit the roof of the net. He was really unlucky with that, but apart from that, I don't really think we made any chances. So, Mikey Johnston for me, we spoke about him last season. Felt he was done at Celtic. I know he's there, but I still think he's done at Celtic. I think he's got day games on the back of a couple of decent performances in the international break, which by accounts I'm not going to say I've seen or anything like that. But Mikey Johnston for me is not for me.
Aye. I mean, obviously you can tell that he's not for me either, but I have to say, you've mentioned there that he's obviously got into the team off the back of a couple of decent performances at international level, and then he must have done something in training, Stephen, to get the nod. Listen, I don't think it's because Rodgers gave up on Yang and he's not going to be good enough. I just think that, for me, I think in Brendan, I'm only surmising, in Brendan Rodgers' head, I think he's gained Mikey Johnston to January. Now that he's back fit, give him to January to try and prove himself. And to do that, I'll have to give him minutes. I think that's why you put him on, to give him some minutes. I hope that he doesn't give him another opportunity to prove himself, because he's had countless now and he just wasn't up to the mark on Saturday. And you have to sort of caveat it with the same token and say, well, he is still getting up to speed, if you like, match fitness wise. But for me, he still looks, listen, he's bulked it a wee bit. He absolutely has, but he still looks weak. He still looks void of ideas. Like, we laugh at like Maeda in the sense that he doesn't know what he's going to do. Sometimes it comes off, sometimes it doesn't, kind of thing. But Maeda's got a bit about him. Mikey Johnston, for me, has no idea what he's going to do. Has no idea what he's doing at times. And he's not good enough for Celtic. I would even argue that if he went to an Aberdeen, probably he's level. But even at that, I don't even think Aberdeen would be interested in him, because he's sort of track record with injuries and stuff like that. And it feels really harsh, but I mean, we've seen this movie so many times, and it's dragged on now, and the guy's had his chance, and I think its time is up. But as I said, I think Rodgers has given him to January. What was your thoughts on him in the game, and obviously where you think he is in terms of standing at the club?
It's standing at the club. I mean, for me, like you, I don't think he should be there. He's not good enough. Jed Thomas even said it, like you, Ross, he wouldn't be good enough for that Hibs team, and I totally agree. I think Boyle and Eliuan on the wings are far better players than him. But Mickey Johnson's been in around the squad for 7 years now. He's had chance after chance to make impacts and come in fits and starts. He scored a wonderful goal against Sarajevo in Europe. He's done a few flashy things on the pitch, a few solo efforts against the likes of St Johnson in the league, but he's never really kicked on. He gets injured after he gets touched. It seems like every other game. He went to Portugal, and albeit he came off the back of a good season, but then he needed a back operation. He was out for 3 months, so that set him back. He didn't get a full pre-season under his belt. And what confuses me, you said he needs minutes, but so does our new summer signing, Yang. He needs minutes to come into the team and get used to the style of play. How has Mickey Johnson came from being injured a few weeks in the training ground to going above Yang? That, to me, doesn't sit well with me at all. And in my opinion, Yang should be getting on ahead of him, streets ahead of him, because he's our new signing. He was the Young Player of the Year in the K League. Everyone was raving about him. We all talked about how flashy he looks, albeit his end product's a bit wayward. But if he needs minutes to get used to the team, that will develop over a course of time. Mickey Johnson getting in ahead of Yang is going to stifle his development. I don't know what Rodgers has given him, to be honest. Is it a new pair of legs? Is it new feet? Because he as Franny said, he's absolutely useless in a Celtic shirt, in my opinion. He shouldn't be there. And it's like Ralston and me, these guys shouldn't be about the club no more. They've had chance after chance, opportunity after opportunity. Maybe some's done better than others, but at the end of the day, the same thing comes back to me. They're not good enough to beat us at Celtic Football Club. You mentioned Aberdeen. He wouldn't get on Aberdeen's team. He'd probably be on the sub bench. That's being honest. And the fact he's coming on, and the fact he's coming on for us to save a game or potentially score a goal isn't good enough. And I used to like him a lot when he first burst onto the scene. I thought he was really skillful, really tricky. Obviously, a couple of injuries, you're like, we'll give him another chance. But ever since we started this podcast, every summer we're talking about Mikey, or in the middle of the season, what can he do? Can this be the season where he kicks on? And it never is. And sometimes you just need to be like, it's not working. We can let you go, move on, permanent transfer, which what I believe should have happened in the summer. But it baffles my mind. And we spoke about it, Ross, on the chat, that how Yang is just sitting there on the bench. You even questioned, was he on the bench? Because you were like, how's Mickey Johnson getting on ahead of him? So unless Yang is incredibly bad in training, which I assume he's not, by the way, I don't think he is. I think he would apply himself, and obviously the culture he's brought up in and stuff, they're really into their training, dedicated and fitness and stuff like that. So I don't see that being an issue. Is it favouritism to give Mickey Johnson another go? Because obviously Rodgers gave him a chance as a kid. Is that playing in the mind a wee bit to give him one more crack at Celtic? But sentimentality and Celtic don't go, and we've seen that throughout the years, and I think we should just let the wee lad go and go to Portugal or go to Switzerland just to kick on his career. And that argument about international football, he scored against Gibraltar. We could score against Gibraltar. Do you know what I mean? It's a team we play on a 4G pitch. They're all part-timers. And like in Redham, so I know the joke and laugh and stuff, but I mean, he's not good enough. It's plain and simple, and it's clear as day. He had a couple of opportunities to beat Lewis Miller, and he never got by him once. The only time he ever got round him when he went on the outside and came in field in a straight line and laid it off to somebody. That was it. Other than that, he was non-existent. He didn't do nothing for me.
Aye. No, I would agree with that. And you look at Yang not getting on it. Definitely was a head scratcher. The only thing I can think of is like what I'd said, that he was giving Mikey Johnston some minutes just to see in a game what he could offer. And I think what he offered, I think, will be as harsh as it is. I think that, certainly for me anyway, I'm hoping for Rodgers, seeing what he offered on Saturday. I think that would be enough for me and say, right, we can't. It's not going to happen for him. I've gave him another wee chance there, and it's just not working. But I'll just come straight back to you, Stephen, because I can't remember what. I don't know actually if he's done a predicted lineup on Friday night. So
Anthony
I can't remember.
I didn't.
You didn't, right? So right, that sort of fucks up a wee bit. No, I'm going to come to obviously the starting lineup on Saturday. There was no changes, obviously, apart from Hatate came out of the team, an enforced change, and Bernardo came in. But he played 85 minutes or whatever anyway, so he essentially played the full game. Obviously, you've got the benefit of hindsight now, but I'm a bit like, he didn't change the lineup, obviously, and we're talking about it looked laboured and whatever. The players look tired. There's guys in the comments that totally take it on board that they should after 2 days rest they should still be able to go again. Brendan Rodgers said that in his presser pre-match. Brendan Rodgers said in his presser pre-match that we'll be ready to go. There's absolutely no doubt about it. But they weren't. You look back, obviously last season, Ange Postecoglou had, for the St Mirren game, that I think they did they lose it, or was that the season? I can't mind. They drew or lost anyway.
2-0.
Aye, and he made about 8 changes. Now, if Rodgers, to me, I think Rodgers is damned if he does. He's damned if he doesn't. If he made 5 or 6 changes and we got the same outcome as what we did on Saturday, we'd be getting absolutely slated for making too many changes. But it's now the case that we drew 0-0 and he's getting not slated, but there's people questioning whether he should have made more changes to the starting lineup. Do you think he should have changed it, or would you have changed it yourself pre-match without the benefit of hindsight, or would you have stuck with the same team after such a huge, really top performance for the guys?
Well, I mean, for me, like from the outside, obviously looking in as a supporter, we expected change. He mentioned rotation in this like period of games. He talked about it very early on before the Atletico game that he was going to use the squad. So I was expecting something. Like you said, we're coming off the back of a fantastic performance against Atletico, right? So we're not coming off the back of a defeat where we're hammered 5 or 6-0. So the players should relatively be on a high. But again, you have to take into account the running, the distance covered, players' legs and stuff like that. I mean, looking at the team, you maybe make an argument where you could have maybe, I don't know, rested Mieta, brung in Yang on the right hand side for a wee bit of trickery to eliminate opponents and that type of thing. You look at the midfield, he brought in Bernardo. Maybe he didn't feel comfortable making 2 changes in there, bringing in like a Turnbull or Thiago Home, who's back in training today. So I could see why he stuck with that. And then you look at the centre back pairing, Vickers and Scales pick itself. So there's no real point disrupting it. So the only really changes I could see from now would be an attacking sense. If I'm getting into that game again, I know people are slating him, and I don't quite get it, right? Because he's never had a full opportunity. Maybe 2 or 3 games over the course of 20, that's say. But I think could be valuable in games like that. I mean, try something different. Stick with the 2 up front. Playing off Kyogo playing off for the knockdowns and things. Wee bit of physicality. So there's ways we can mix it up. I'm not writing off yet. I still like what I see from him. He's raw. Don't get me wrong. He's really raw. But the way he spun Considine that time with St Johnson in his first game, he can take the ball in, he can spray a pass, and we've seen him score goals as well from the sub bench. So I'm holding out hope for him just yet. So yeah, maybe the attacking third, Ross, Yang in to start a game. I wouldn't have started Forrest. I wouldn't have started Johnson. They don't even come into my mind when I think about players starting. So that's where I'm looking at, to be fair. I mean, as I said, midfield, I think it was always going to be Bernardo coming in and no one else.
Aye. Listen, for me, I don't know what you think, Franny, but for me, such a good performance. I agree with people in the comments saying that and Brendan himself thought that they would be ready to go. He wouldn't have said it otherwise. But for me, after a performance like that, and I know it was a draw, but that team played at Tynecastle as well, and well, obviously barring Bernardo because Hatate started, but essentially the same team. It's a winning team. Again, I know we drew with Atletico, but that was a really big result. That team wins, that performance wins any game in Scotland. So for me, I don't think you change a winning team. I think Palma was coming onto a game. You keep these guys in the team and motoring for me. What did you think?
I know, I'd absolutely no issues with the team, Ross. It's probably the team I'd have went with. I know we've not really seen a lot of Bernardo, but I thought he done well on the Wednesday night. I don't think he's
he did.
the type of player. He's not I don't think he's a creative player, but he breaks up the play a lot and drives the ball and gets you up the park. And it's like, he's a bit like Scott Brown in the sense that he just seems to keep everything sort of simple now. Like as he can win the ball back well and get you up the park a wee bit, and keeps the passes simple. He's not very creative in that sense, but I think he's a very useful player. And it's maybe just him just trying to find his feet in the team, and you never know, with obviously Hatate's absence, he might get a run in the team. But I'm similar to Stephen. It's if you were to make changes, it would have had to be in the forward line, and it would have been a really, really brave call, because it says Liam Scales has surprised us all, and I think he fully deserves his place.
He needs to keep going.
I mean,
he needs to keep playing.
He needs to keep going. Carter Vickers obviously is in. Alistair Johnson, as we discussed, is in, and you really never ever, as much as I didn't want Mikey Johnson, I definitely didn't want Bernabei in, so I really didn't see how you even change the back four at this stage. So it would have been a brave call to change the front three, because as we say, we know what we've said about Maeda, how he's the weirdest footballer in the world, but you tend to always pick him. Palmer's coming onto a game, Kyogo just scores goals, so it would have been like you say, Ross, if Rodgers went and made 3, 4, 5 changes and drew that game, he's got to get more stick than what he's, like say, he's not got a lot of stick, but it's an easy one to say, why did he not make changes? But then everybody moaned when, like you touched on, Postecoglou made the 9 changes or whatever it was. Everybody moaned about saying it was too many changes, but then there was times when he made similar sort of changes and won a game, but nobody wanted to talk about it then. So it's one of them. It's you said it. It's damned if he does, damned if he didn't. It was a bad day at the office, but could you have played? I think it would have been a brave move to play away from home up front. I understand what you're saying, Stephen, but Kyogo's obviously just scored in the Champions League, scored it against Hearts.
I mean, playing off him as a 2,
maybe, but I don't see a decent enough argument off the back of Wednesday night's performance and result to then go. I think Bernardo's side, because obviously that one's forced, to then justify making a lot of changes. For me, I'm like you, Ross. It doesn't make sense to on the back of such a good performance to then make 3, 4 changes. And as I think we've said, it's really, you would be looking the forward line, maybe Awata coming in instead of Bernardo, but I just didn't think that would be a good sign. Maybe a good thing for the guy's confidence after he came on midweek and played really well. So for me, it's probably a team I'd have went with, in fairness.
Aye, I mean, Stephen, I agree with you, Franny, obviously, and Stephen, I agree with yourself in the sense that the only changes you could have made would have been nearer the top end of the pitch. I don't think you tinker with your back four at any point unless it's forced. It's working now. They're sort of Scales and Carter Vickers are sort of getting an understanding with each other, and then you've got your Alistair Johnston and obviously Greg Taylor. I think they need to start. Your midfield, obviously, you've got Bernardo enforced. And by the way, Ross strikes again. Does he know? I said, I think I was hosting last week, and I said, I would like to see a bit more of Bernardo. I didn't want to see him at the expense of Rio Hatate after Christmas. But it seems that every time I speak, something the opposite happens. I was on about the defence, and then I was talking about Stephen Welsh and all the rest of it, and then he got injured, then Navrocki got injured, and then I said we were going to go on an unbeaten run, and we got beat off St. I just need to start.
Don't say anything else.
Aye. I'm needing to just quit this podcast. But aye, listen. I think he was right to go with the same team, and that's not because of what we're going to come on to now. I don't think we've not got enough squad depth. We could have. There is players that we could have changed it, but it's not because of that. It's not because of that.
Do your accent.
It's shit. It's shit. Absolutely awful. But anyway, aye. So we'll come on to obviously now the hot topic again. every time Celtic, I'll come to you first, Franny. Every time Celtic,
Dick.
no, well, I've just spoke.
What are you joking?
You know, you can build yourself up to a crescendo there, Stephen. But it seems, Franny, every single time we drop points now, we get people. Stephen Dutch Ross. Listen, it sounded Irish in my head. That's all it matters. Every single time Celtic drop points, it seems like the same people who were asking for the big summer spend come out and start talking about squad depth, and they feel validated for asking for this big summer spend off the back of Celtic dropping points. They then feel validated, but for me, the validation comes from like it's only based on conjecture, because they don't actually know if we'd signed this or that and spent this and that. That doesn't mean that we would have won that game on Saturday, or we would have beat Atletico Madrid. It's all ifs, buts, and maybes. But I mean, I don't know. What's your thoughts on just the squad depth? We're going to go into like individual players, obviously, but in terms of the squad depth, what's your thoughts? Do you think that the squad depth is there for certainly domestically?
It's certainly there domestically, but I think I don't know if maybe just still a wee bit emotions running high for the weekend. Is it maybe has the fact that we've played so, I mean, this is probably contradictory, but we've played so well for a sustained period of time. Has it maybe papered over how good the squad depth is? I know what I'm trying to say there, and it does sound totally contradictory.
I get it.
I'm saying that it's because I do feel like, say, when you're bringing on Mikey Johnson and things like that, it's as the recruitment being as good as it has. I can understand where folk come with the arguments, and I was one of the ones that was very vocal saying that I want us to spend big, and I agree with you, Ross.
That was caught my eye.
hopefully that's not Alistair. Hopefully that's not the colour he does it in January.
I'm sorry, by the way. I just caught my eye, and I was like, "Wow."
I don't think folk realise that is not paint it's on that. It's just plaster.
Oh God.
But I think, are people validated by results like that? I think maybe in their head they'll feel validated, but to an extent, there is a bit of an argument that they have maybe got a body evidence to then say, well, we've got this money in the bank, but all that nonsense. But I do agree with you, Ross, saying, and you can go and spend X, Y, and Z. As much as I was vocal about it, you don't know how that would play sell out in these other matches. You don't really know. Voy averages would tell you it's got to give you a better chance. Doesn't obviously necessarily manifest into the result. There must be other
comments. Sorry, I've lost my composure.
I can't see the comments now because of the new computer, and that's sad. I can what the comments are saying. But I do understand some of the folks' arguments saying that maybe the squad depth isn't as good as we think it is, but weren't they really complaining? What I would say to they folk as well is we weren't really complaining about this when we were getting positive results. I mean, we weren't complaining about squad depth on Wednesday night last week. So that's all I would kind of try and counteract with that. But I do, to an extent, understand what some folk are saying when you come to it, especially, like say, I'm a big fan of James Forrest, but there's a lot of folk that maybe think he's had his time. Folk will look at you bringing on James Forrest, Mikey Johnson, Ralston, and going, well,
Turnbull.
But again, that's a player I think is a really good player. Maybe could we do better? Of course we could, but I think he's still a very good player. But folk will look at that and saying, well, is it really as good as it could be? I don't know. I understand some folks' arguments, but for me, it's I'm similar to you, Ross, in the sense that saying it's easy to use that excuse, but for me, you've got to try and balance it out. We weren't complaining about squad depth on Wednesday when we drew 2-2. We weren't complaining about squad depth when we beat Hearts 4-1. We weren't complaining about squad depth when we played Liam Scales and Lagerbielke back at Ibrox and won. So I think it's fine domestically, but I do, to an extent, I do understand what folk are saying. But for me, it's not as big a problem that I've read on social media in the last couple of days.
Listen, I would agree with that. I look at it and I'm like, folk are moaning about turning to guys like James Forrest on Saturday and David Turnbull, but there's factors as to why we're turning to the guys. So James Forrest is getting called upon more regularly now because we don't have a bada. Turnbull has been called upon there because we're needing a goal. Hibs are like sitting really deep, and David Turnbull's a guy that'll come on and have a shot. The keeper maybe parry it, and then we got a goal for that. But listen, I'm not saying the Celtic squad, Stephen, is absolutely perfect. It doesn't need any work done to it. It doesn't need, doesn't need areas addressed, whether it be the starting 11 or other players and just into the squad. But for me, it's always, it's always, I agree with that, it's as knee-jerk. Every single time we drop points, people just think it's the squad depth, it's not good enough. Like Franny, talking about Wednesday night there, we started with that 11, then we lost Rio Hatate, and Bernardo comes into a big European game and gives a really good account of himself. He done the same against Lazio when he came on. We changed formation in game in that to get ourselves over the line, and we came up trumps. We got a positive result, if you want to call it a positive result, at home against one of the teams that have got aspirations of winning that tournament. It's not always going to be perfect, but I mean, what's your thoughts before we go into the actual individual players that I'll sort of touch on, just to sort of highlight, if you like, and discuss where we are in terms of players that have been brought in and stuff like that. But just a general thought for you on the sort of squad depth as it stands.
I mean, in the comments again, John Kerr, people did point out the squad and bench. You weren't listening. Celtic Glasgow champions. It's not really knee jerk. We have went on about it all summer. Brown Warrior. Let's ignore the elephant in the room, Peter. That 17 million sat in the bank is post accounts profit. So again, I don't think, I agree, it's not knee jerk. I think this would be an issue, and I think Franny pointed out a fantastic point, to be fair, about this is the run of form. Rightly so, by the way, because we played fantastically well, has papered over the deficiencies that was seen at the start of the season and the end of the transfer window, which we were all talking about. When you're at Easter Road for me, and your match winners to come on and save the game are Mikey Johnson, James Forrest, Turnbull, Ralston obviously enforced, there's an issue with squad depth. There really is. I mean, domestically, I'll concede we have the strength to win the league, right? That's fair enough. We do have the best squad in the league, but in a European level, we don't. But it's pittance. It's nothing compared to what these European teams could do. We spoke about that at length before as well. And you go back to the summer recruitment, and yeah, I mean, Mikey gets a place in the bench. He's coming on over, again, not mentioning individual players too much, but the likes of Yang, Lagerbielke's dropped off the face of the earth. All these players who were steadily making an impact have suddenly kind of went silent, and that's a bit concerning for me. I've always said it and maintained it, and I think I've been consistent. We should be signing players to come into the first team. We shouldn't be signing squad beefers or to beef out the squad. Doesn't work with a club like Celtic. Because if we're wanting to make a jump or be better than we are now, and look, that's before talking about European level, we need to sign players who are better than what we have instead of signing people to sit in the bench and come in for a game here. Now, Bernardo only got an opportunity because Hatate was injured. Otherwise, he was basically non-existent since he signed a loan from Benfica. So there's a fundamental issue with me and the recruitment team. Mark Lawwell's been lauded as this genius, but his hit rate is actually pretty weak if you go through the signings. And since Anne's come in till now, especially later on in Anne's Celtic career, coming into Rodgers, I'd say maybe 5 of the signings have made an impact. So there is a concern on my front. And I thought with the quality we let go in the summer, Jota, Starfelt, albeit Scales has been fantastic, but no one's seen that coming. There's been a bit of quality. Jack and Mac, as you mentioned him earlier in the show, Franny, we have no one like these guys no more, if you get me. So that for me is my concern. Squad depth in domestic competition should see us through, but European competition, regardless of the fantastic performance against Atletico Madrid, we're nowhere near.
Well, listen, I take your point there, but I look at it and I totally agree with you in the sense that we should be signing. I said that you asked me the question in the summer, Stephen. What do you want Celtic to do in the transfer market? Before, I think it was before. Well, it would have been before Ange left because of how I answered the question. But I said I expect or I hope that Celtic will sign 3 or 4 players that are going to challenge or go into the first 11. Now, had Ange still been there, I think probably Celtic would have done that because Ange would have had the players earmarked that he wanted to do that, to take us on to challenging and making that next step for what he done previously in the Champions League. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. Brendan Rodgers comes in. Now, if he comes in and says, I want these 3 or 4 players, without looking at the actual squad and seeing what everybody that was already there has got to offer, I think guys sort of turn on him a wee bit and think, well, he's just coming in here and he's wrapping it up. We've just won a treble. So I think he needed that bit of grace to give everybody an opportunity, a clean slate. And I think, listen, Brendan Rodgers has said, we didn't get the business done that we wanted to get done. Whether that was a time issue by the time he had overseen seeing how his squad was and what he needed, I don't know. But there'll be other windows for Brendan Rodgers to sign the players he wants to sign. We did bulk out the squad, if you like, but listen, we'll get into the individual players, right, that we signed and who was already there and stuff.
Can I just say something as well? Just seeing some of the comments talking about project players. I think it's mad. As I say, I wanted us to spend money, and I even said I thought we'd break our transfer record in the summer window. But I find it interesting that if Rangers spend 3.5 million, 4 million on a player, we instantly hear him as a great, they're a good player in that. 3.5 million for Palma is a project player. 4 million for Naroki.
But there's a difference, Franny. There's a difference with the difference is Rangers are spending money because they're not at the level of us. So any player
you're spending that level of money, and we're obviously we just assume they're a good player. We spend it, and it's a project player.
Yeah, because we're believing we should sign, as you said, higher transfer fees. So that's the issue there.
What I'm trying to say is, how can when Rangers sign a guy at 4 million, it be a really good player?
He's going to be a dangerous player.
That he's a dangerous player, but if we sign a boy at 4 million, it's a project player. Where's the logic in that?
I haven't really thought about that. That's a good point. I'll take it on board.
Right, well, I was going to start off in Navrocki, but what I'll do is I'll start with the starting 11, if you like. So I've heard people saying that our starting 11 now is weaker than it was at the season's end, right? So
this feels like a full-on clinic. I'm loving it.
Well, I'll come to you first, Franny, right? People, as I say, people say it's weaker now than it was at the season's end last season, right? Where we had Jota and we had Starfelt, but Starfelt left, right? We brought in Navrocki, Lagerbielke to replace Starfelt. It turns out, obviously, we had to then bring in Nat Phillips. Obviously, Lagerbielke got suspended, and it coincided with CCV coming back. Navrocki got injured. Liam Scales has come in, right? And for me, now you can only, I know he had previous time at Celtic, he was playing at left back and stuff like that, and he had to go out and loan. Aye, yeah,
brilliant comment. That's a brilliant comment.
But Liam Scales came in, right? Now, you can only judge him in this wee window that he's played, and that's what everybody's doing. And he's playing absolutely superb for me for Celtic. I think at the minute in this wee window, I don't know what you think, Franny, but I think that he is defending as good as Starfelt did for me, but he also is better with the ball at his feet, and he brings more balance to the team because he's left-footed, right? So I look at that and I go, right, so in terms of the starting 11 and the way Liam Scales is playing now, are we a weaker back four than we were last season? I would argue no, right? The other player that we lost was Jota, a great player. G-O-T-G, Tino. Brilliant film, amazing, love it. But we then lose Jota, right? Absolutely terrific player, no doubt about it. Big game player, right? And we say for weeks and weeks and weeks, we've not replaced him. For all the world now, I think, we were talking about Palma there, I think for me, for all the world, I'm not saying Palma's as good as Jota, right? But he's coming in. Jota was a ball carrier. Palma isn't he? But Palma can pick a pass better than Jota did. And he's every bit, for me, again, judging him in the small window that we've got, because that's all you can judge him on. But he's every bit as much of a goal threat as Jota. So for me, again, I'll say it, different players, and Celtic are playing a slightly different style. But on the face of it, for me, if you're saying that that's our best 11, I don't think it's that much weaker, if at all, than the one that was our best 11 at the season's end last season. What do you think?
For me, it's weaker. It's not massively weaker. But again, I think a fairer argument would be to have this maybe next summer. And when maybe Scales has had that full season, and he's maybe had, if he continues this form on, and then Palma continues his progression on, it may be a wee bit fairer. Because for me, I thought Jota was just a different level, just a really, really top player. Palma, as I say, in recent weeks has looked like that. I don't know off the top of my head, but I think I read something on Twitter because somebody was saying that he's not really made an impact, and somebody was like, well, he's had, obviously, it was a bit of a moot point bringing up the Lazio goal, but the disallowed goal with Lazio, but a boy brought that up. He had an assist against Motherwell, a goal against Motherwell, and I think he'd done something else. It was before the Atletico Madrid game, and it was like he's had something like 3 goal contributions in 2 games or something, like over like 180 minutes or something. I was like, well, that's actually making a really good impact. So it has come on again, but for me, I would say we are weaker. Just simply, Starfelt, for all his flaws, he was a great partner for CCV. I totally agree that for me, Starfelt is ungainly and awkwardly looked. I think he defends better than Scales, but cannot disagree that cannot make a case for him being better on the ball than Scales. Not in a million years will I try and do that. I think Scales is way better on the ball, does give it a better balance. So I don't think we're massively weaker there, because I think some of sort of the pros and cons between the two players kind of balance themselves out. Maybe lean to Scales is sort of when being suited to the left centre half, maybe gives him that wee edge in there. But for me, Jota, I think that's. I'm not going to sit and say it's a massive dropout. It'd be very, very unfair in Palma, but I think there's a noticeable difference between the two. But as I say, to go back to how I started, I think it'd be fairer not to have a go at your topics. It'd be fairer to have this kind of conversation given Palma maybe a season under his belt, but he certainly looks a very exciting player. He's got an eye for goal, he's got a great shot on him, got a good cross on him, so he's got the potential to do what Jota done and maybe even better. I don't know, but for me, I would say the starting 11 is weaker, but no massively.
Listen, I take it on board that it would be it would be fairer to make a proper judgment over a longer period of time. But people have been saying for the summer, which is why I'm bringing it up. But Stephen, just same to you in terms of the what is perceived to be our best 11 right now, and our best 11 at the end of the Scottish Cup final? Are we weaker? Are we plateaued? What, stronger? What do you think?
I think overall the squad's weaker. As a whole, the squad's weaker.
Aye,
I mean,
but I just mean the
the
11.
first 11, sorry.
Aye.
But so if we're looking at Scales and Starfelt, what I loved about Starfelt was his recovery pace. He was so quick across the ground. He was very rarely beaten in one-on-one situation, regardless if it was his weaker side being the right or left. We all know he wasn't comfortable with the ball. But defensively, I thought he was sound. And I know he had a few errors in him, but what centre half that we sang doesn't, if we're honest. I mean, Scales' is kind of raised the form has been excellent. It's like a story. You can probably make a movie out of it. I think all round, I think Scales is probably a better football player than Starfelt. The way he carries the ball, the way he can pick a pass, he's so comfortable pinging the ball left and right, and he makes it easier for Taylor to find angles. I think as well, midfield players dropping in and finding the wide man on occasion. So he's really good at that. Jed Thomas wants me to say we're missing Moy. Absolutely never in a million years will I mention we're missing him. I'm so happy that he's gone. But Jota for me is the biggest one. And I know Palmer's come in. Franny, you mentioned some of his stats. I think it's a couple of assists, couple of goals. It's great reading. But I'd rather have Jota every day of the week. 100%. What he brings. And you mentioned passing ability. We're forgetting the pass he played to Kyogo at Furnace Faros in the Europa League. From his own half, pinged it right up to him. Kyogo took a touch, fizzed it in the back of the net. I think that's when the wee golf celebration or something like that was formed. But it was just it was fantastic. So he can do that. That's in his locker. I think he's just a different animal altogether. He's a fantastic footballer, and just unfortunately at the moment it's not working out for him at his club over in Saudi Arabia. Who knows? He might come back. Who knows? But yeah, I think like it's. First 11 on that basis for me is weaker. And another thing, the big change in everyone's mind is a style of play, really, because we've effectively changed how we play. Last season was the gung-ho approach, attack, non-stop, we never stop. So that's changed. Now we're more possession-based, we're more methodical, we keep the ball more, we try and pick the right opportunities to attack the team and also defensively as well. So there's different aspects of it that maybe it's not as pleasing on the eye, and that's why people are saying we're weaker. Or vice versa, people prefer this than what they've seen it with fans. But for me, like Franny, I have to say, like, for me, it is weaker.
Aye, that's fair enough. I mean, I can't. I wouldn't say I'm not sitting here saying that Palmer's better than Jota. I'm absolutely not. But listen, there's no much in it. If we are weaker, it's not like we've dropped off the face of a cliff.
No.
And we're playing a different style of football, like you alluded to there, Stephen. But we're doing it a different way, but we're still essentially right now getting the same result, and that is winning the majority of the games of football, top of the league, competing in Europe, but not quite getting over the line, albeit we got a absolutely terrific result in isolation on Wednesday night, last Wednesday. But that's fair enough. We've spoke about the the sort of 11 and if it's weaker or stronger or whatever. We'll move on to like the actual squad depth now and the players that came in and stuff like that. I'll come back to you, Stephen. We'll just start with Navroki. I'm hearing people like writing all these guys off that have come in, right? So this is why we're sort of talking about this. So Navroki, for me, right, people are questioning, like, maybe not so much him because he's been injured, right? But for me, he's come in there and he's injured, but he's coming back. I think he might be fit again now.
He's back.
He's coming back.
Aye.
And people are saying, well, how can he not get into the team? Well, he can't get into the team because Liam Scales is playing so well. And Liam Scales was a guy who everybody had written off. So for me, we talk about squad depth, we talk about areas, so we're talking about the defensive area of the pitch. For me, that points to, well, maybe the squad, certainly in that area, isn't as weak as we thought, because our biggest outlay in the summer, can he get into the team for somebody that was a squad player and is performing really well right now? What's your thoughts on the sort of Navrocki situation and getting back into the team and like his signing in general?
I think the Rockies probably one of the two summer signings that was bought to be a potential first team player. Obviously, what was it, 4.5 million, 5 million quid
I think it was there
put on him, like, and he played a full season in the Polish League. I think he won a championship with like a Warsaw as well. So look, he got injured and it was unfortunate, but I think what was seen of him was promising. He was strong, he was athletic, he was tall, he was dominant in the air, and he could also play the ball from the back. I think he was 2-footed as well. The whole skills thing, again, it's like a fairy tale. No one's seen this coming. We all expected him to be out the door, probably one of the first names out the door, along with other people, and suddenly turns into Maldini. You know what I mean? It's you can't overestimate the part he's played in the team and helping us along the way with injuries. You mentioned there maybe we're not as weak as we think in the centre back. We certainly aren't. I mean, we've got multiple centre backs, but they're all signed because of an injury. A player came in on loan because of an injury. We signed a Lagerbielke because of an injury. So these players have accumulated because of, we signed Lagerbielke off the back of an injury. I'm pretty sure we did.
No, he was
fair enough. Well, I take that back if that's not true. But look, we're stacked at centre half, and until Scales makes a mistake or he gets injured, then the Rocky just has to wait his time. I do believe he has his place in the squad. He'll be the next in line to fill that void if anything happens, Scales, or he drops off form.
Aye, I would agree with that. I think that he's... Well, I agree with you in the sense that you've said that he was signed to be a CCV's partner, and obviously it hasn't transpired like that because of Scales' form. I'll not get used to both labour over the same player kind of thing, because you'll just sort of say the same stuff. So I'll come to you and Lagerbielke, Franny. And Stephen, you said he's sort of not dropped off the face of a cliff, but you said that he sort of disappeared. And for me, I alluded to it earlier, and that he's lost his place, yep. But that he got obviously sent off at Feyenoord, and if he was unlucky, he shouldn't. For me, it wasn't a red card, Franny. But he's now not. But he's back again. But he can't get into the team. You're only going to pick so many defenders on your subs bench. He's not getting onto that at the minute. But for me, he's been unlucky because he's, like I said, his suspension coincided with Carter Vickers coming back. Liam Scales is playing really well. So again, for me, we're looking at squad depth. We're looking at defence here. That's another player who, for me, any time he played, performed pretty well. He's a Swedish international, 23-year-old, and he can't get back into the team because of a so-called squad player. And we're talking here that he actually might be behind Navrocki. So, again, that points to me saying squad isn't in that area, isn't as weak as we're all, or people are saying online and stuff like that. What's your thoughts on that?
It's hard to argue against that, Ross. To be fair, when you actually lay it out like that, I mean, it has been really unlucky due to the fact that obviously his, like you say, suspension kind of coincided with CCV coming back. We can wax lyrical all day, every day about Liam Scales. We just all be repeating ourselves. It's nobody predicted what he done. We all had him out the door. So Lagerbielke is very unfortunate. Obviously came in. I think he was maybe well said in the summer we needed a centre half to come in to complement what was there. Starfelt and everybody left. You brought in the Rothgate to replace him. So I think Lagerbielke was then the person to come in and complement that. Obviously the chain of events you've mentioned, he did play. Had a wee sticky moment against Rangers, but then grew into the game. But I think in the main, he has done okay. But it's been really unlucky. Like you say, there's only so many folk you can put in the bench at the end of the day. And it is fair to say maybe certainly defence. I think central defence. I think it's fair to say we're pretty comfortable. Liam Scales is a big factor in that we're where we are. But I think we're very, very comfortable in the centre half position when it comes to squad depth. as much as I said maybe we are papering over cats with some results, I think centre half is arguably a position where it's hard to get a decent one, never mind decent two. And I think we're doing all right. I do like Navrovka. I think he's a good player. Scales is just amazing. Everybody in Lagerbielke, like you say, looks a steady enough player. So I think centre half we're well uncovered.
Aye, well, I think we absolutely are as well. But I look at it as well, and we've got all the players right, and like CCV's the best for all the world right now.
Phillips a bad player either. I think he's
no,
a real good player.
Well, I've got to come on to him. Got to come on to him next, but like CCV's the best, right? And then for all the world, you have to argue maybe Liam Scales is the next. But with a team like Celtic, and by the way, almost every team in world football for me, bar the really elite clubs, the people who are not the first choice, there's going to be a drop off. You're not going to get the same level of player because Alistair Johnston plays at Celtic. If we signed another Alistair Johnston, who is of the level of Alistair Johnston, it'll be okay for 6 months to a year. We'll be able to go between the both of them, and you've got that guy to come on. But after a year, whoever's not getting picked is going to get fed up, like Franny said earlier, like Giacomakis, and they'll eventually get a bit of unrest and want to move on. I just think it's difficult for Celtic, certainly a team like Celtic, but most teams in the world, to have the exact same level of player for like 2 players for each position. You can get 2 players for each position, but not the exact same level of player. I think there's always going to be that drop off. Listen, maybe with some areas of the pitch, there's too big a drop off, and that's the issue.
Yeah,
we need to get our understudies a bit closer in some areas. But listen, again, that comes with more windows and more time for Brendan Rodgers. The squad, I think we can all agree, is absolutely massive. But and it needs trimmed a bit, and it needs like some shite taken out and a bit more quality put in. But sticking to the defensive area now, Stephen, we then brought in Matt Phillips, and I've heard people saying that the recruitment in the summer was really bad, right? Some people, Franny, you said there you like Nat Phillips. I don't dislike him. I don't think he's ripped up trees or whatever, but he's done okay. But he was brought in, Stephen, at a time when we needed to bring him in. It was like an emergency to an extent. For all the world, he's probably not needed now. Is he ahead of Lagerbielke? Possibly not. But at that time, he was a necessity. So for me, that's not bad recruitment. That's just getting a body in that you needed, and he was available. What's your thoughts on that?
I think we discussed it at the time, and we said it was a good, quick bit of business by Celtic getting someone like Nat Phillips through the door. Obviously, experience playing with Liverpool, playing in the Champions League, playing in their league-winning campaigns and stuff like that. So he came in as an emergency. He ended up on the physio table, so he didn't really do much. If I was in charge of contracts right now, I would terminate his contract and send it back to Anfield. We're probably paying a hefty percentage of his wage, so get that off the wage bill if we're looking to release some money back into the club again. There's no need for him no more. That is harsh me saying that, but we've got Lagerbielke back, we've got Naraki back now, we've got Scales on form, we've got Iwata can fill in at centre back, he's fully fit, and the lesser mentioned Kobayashi, he can do a job as well. So I would be like, bye bye Phillips, cut him out. And look, he came on in the back three against Atletico. He did all right, but his passing was awful. He was all over the place, and in points he was in the right hand side. He was playing wing. I don't know what he was doing. I really don't. He was meant to be in the back three, but he was just marching everywhere across that pitch. Didn't impress me in that game at all. And I think Celt 88 said it that the 45 whatever minutes he played against Atletico, he done worse than Lagerbielke was done in the whole games Lagerbielke was played, and I totally agree in terms of the passing and things like that. So I would terminate his contract and say, thanks for your emergency service, even though you've done nothing. Enjoy Liverpool.
Listen, I agree with that text. I think you're being slightly harsh on the guy. I think that, listen, when we signed him, nobody told us.
We don't need 6 centre halves now, though.
No, I know, but what I would say to that is, I think he's into January. No, I know, but he's into January, so let him keep him to January and let him honour the deal, sort of thing. He came in and helped us out to an extent, but. You spoke about his passing was off against Atletico, and it absolutely was. But he was never brought in, and he never claimed to be, and nobody who talked about him said that he was a ball player, a ball playing centre half. He's a ball winning centre half. That's all he is. And
we can tell.
That's just his game. But listen, he hasn't needed anymore. We've got enough in that area in terms of the starting 11, and then the two players underneath the two who are in situ the new in the first 11. But I would say let the guy honour his contract. You've signed a short term deal, helped us out to the best of your ability, albeit he was mostly injured. But let him see it out. But we'll move on to the midfield area of the pitch now, Franny, and we'll start with one of your new signings, Thiago Home. He came in. Now he's 20 years of age. People again are saying he's miles off it and stuff like that, and like writing him off. And why is he not anywhere near the squad? If he was good enough, then he would be playing, or he would be in like on the bench and stuff like that. But he actually has been unfit the last couple of weeks. But he's 20 years of age, and he's coming in here to a new country, trying to get into a midfield three, which consists of McGregor, Hatate and O'Reilly, who are all operating as a unit and individually at a very high level. Certainly Matt O'Reilly is he's absolutely off the scale now. And you look at it and you've...
I like that.
But then you look at it and you've got Bernardo is obviously ahead of him now. I don't know if that's... he might not be ahead of him, but he's been the one called upon because Home hasn't been fit the last couple of weeks. Then you've got Awata, who was already here. I think, for me, on what I've seen, I think Bernardo is ahead of... I think Bernardo's probably a better player, a better option than Home at the moment. But, I mean, for me, again... You're looking at that, and we've got three really good players, as I said, as our first choice. Then you've got Bernardo, who has come in and performed well on the European stage, which is the biggest stage of all. We've got Awata, who for me is a good player, very good player. And then you've got Home. Now that's 6 options. For me, Home, just because he isn't playing and isn't in every single squad, it doesn't mean it's bad recruitment. And also for me, when you look at the players we've got, I don't think that is poor depth, poor quality in that area of the squad.
Nah, again, Ross, I'm feeling like you're just picking holes in my argument earlier. But Home is it? I think he's an exciting enough player. He's looked good in some of the things he's. I was in Stevens. Then Ross kind of just says things. And I'm like, well,
Franny.
It's made me, Stephen. I'll go wherever my butter's breed, kid. I'll just come to my side.
My butter's breed.
That's good on TikTok. Someone set that up. What was it? Butter's breed? What though?
Wherever my butter's breed.
Idiot.
Bread and butter and that.
Oh Jesus!
But Thiago Home is a player that I do like. What I have seen him is he's 20-year-old. I mean, I know we're not talking about a bad, but we kind of spoke about his in different form at times, but always caveated that with saying the guy's 19-year-old. Thiago Home's just in the door. He's 20-year-old. He's obvious. I think folk in the comments. I think I read Rogers as well saying that he's been out injured, which is kind of sort of clears up why he's not been in the squad recently. and obviously had the red card in Europe where I think he just showed a wee bit of inexperience. I think he was unlucky. It was a red card, but I think he was really unlucky, and I think it was maybe just a wee bit inexperienced and things like that. But it does look like a sort of a confident enough player. I do think it will take maybe time. He'll need to kind of.
I love this. It's so funny.
I think he'll need to bide his time because it's one of them. To argue that it's bad recruitment, then you would have to then say, well, who do you play him in front of? Do you play him in front? Who are you dropping out that team to give home a game? And I just don't think you're dropping any of the. Obviously, Hatati's injured now, but pre last week, you're not dropping any like Hatati, McGregor, or O'Reilly for really anybody in that team right now. So I know he has been out injured, but guys like him, Bernardo, and that they're just really unlucky that it's probably our strongest sort of a position on the park. I think as a starting unit anyway, they three and O'Reilly, McGregor, and Hatati. So it's hard. He's a young lad. He's obviously been out injured. I don't know how much that red card maybe could have knocked his confidence a wee bit and things, but he's a player I'm excited to see more of, and maybe will get a wee bit of more minutes due to obviously the unfortunate injury to Hatati, but I think that's Bernardo's place now, and maybe Awata's probably ahead of him as well.
Aye, but by the way, I have to say, I think you will see him playing more games now that Hatati's out. He'll go between him and Bernardo, even Awata. But you look at it.
By the way, Martin Nugent can't be being serious about Quan, surely.
What?
He's saying that
it's a summer signing though. That's the issue, isn't it?
What would they say about him? Like,
but he's saying hard pressed to find a bad free domestic from that. Aye, Quan and any combination of them is a bad free.
Aye, but
so
I mean, you look at it, right? Hatati's out, and you're bringing in. You've got a choice between Home, who is, for me, people can't say he's shit because he's come in. He's looked decent, but he's 20-year-old. I don't see that as bad recruitment. I see that as a guy with a hell of a lot of potential, but I think it was worth not even taking a risk, but it's worth bringing him in. He was whatever that award was for young
players or something.
Whatever it was, but listen, we're not signing guys just because they've got that. But I think we're so strong in that midfield three, and for me, Awata, if he comes into that team, I trust him. Listen, it's going to be a drop-off for Hatati, whoever it is. But I don't think you noticed. I think the biggest compliment you can pay Bernardo, and we'll come on to him next, Stephen, anyway, is that in the two games he's played, albeit Celtic weren't great on Saturday, I don't think that you noticed a huge drop-off, I think, Francisco.
Oh, that's Ross's Dyer talking about.
See, people don't actually realise that that's drying.
I know. That's would be impressive to actually do that, I think. That was on purpose.
Well, you get the Venetian plaster, it was good look like that. But anyway, we're digressing on to
what does happen there?
I don't know. I can't even mind what point I was making.
Rose in the comment in the show here.
Kenny. The biggest compliment you could sort of pay Bernardo, albeit we didn't play great on Saturday, is that in that midfield three when he came in, it didn't look a massive drop off. Hatati's great, he is, but it didn't look a massive drop off in terms of the three as a unit. Again, he's a guy, 21-year-old, I think. He was brought in late.
Anyway.
I think he's 21, but he was brought in late. Right, well, late. I think it was the last day of the window. In actual fact, if I remember right, but he's another one that's getting his chance due to injuries. For me, at the moment, I think he's taking it. So again, I don't think you can sit here and say that he's a bad player. So that is, again, for me, not bad recruitment. And we're looking at it and going, well, he's done it in the European stage now. So how is that bad squad depth when
Well, he's not done
coming
it.
in and doing the job?
He's played 85 minutes. He's not done it, Ross.
Well, he done it
on a
against. He
European
came in
level.
and played well against Lazio, but you can only judge on what you've seen. We can make a better judgment a longer period of time, but we're talking about now. Do you know what I mean? We're talking about the squad depth now because people are saying right now that the squad isn't good enough. So I'm here talking to you about it to not argue against it. And I see, I think it was John Cairn, the comment saying to board members or whatever. I know it's tongue in cheek and stuff like that. I know it's tongue in cheek. Listen, I'm not saying for a second that Celtic don't need to add to that squad, but what I'm trying to point out is I don't think it's as bad as everybody thinks, and I'm making my case, and I'm getting used to come back with yours. So, as I said, for me, Bernardo has come in and played against Lazio and didn't look out of place. Celtic, he played the vast majority of a game against a really good team, and we got a 2-2 draw. Bad recruitment, poor squad depth in that area. No, for me.
Well, I mean, like you look at it. Hold on a wee second. You look at it in terms of the squad depth, right? And like Bernardo, what we've seen of him, he looks a fantastic potential player. He's starring for the under-21 Portugal team. He's played for us a few times. He's done well against Atletico Madrid. But the issue in me here, and I think we're missing it a wee bit. Every player you've mentioned, now you can maybe take Naraki out of the list and possibly Palma, but every player you've mentioned aren't either ready or good enough to make a step up into the first team until there's an injury. So my issue with the squad depth isn't necessarily the players coming in. It's the fact that none of these players can take the place of the individual players we're speaking about, like a Tate, O'Reilly, McGregor, a Vickers, a Johnson, until there's an injury. So in that aspect of things, the squad depth for me isn't good enough, regardless of potential, regardless of what their ceiling could be. As you said, it's a small window.
You're wanting starting 11 players, so that isn't the squad depth. That's the starting 11.
No, I get that, but I'm coming on to the squad depth now. So I'm saying, like, you look at Bernardo, like you mentioned, and you talked about home. I'm excited to see more of Thiago home. I think he looks a good prospect. I like Bernardo. He's elegant on the ball. And I think it was Celt88 said it as well in the comments that he likes a 50-50 challenge, getting stuck in about it, and it's good to see that 100%. But if a Bernardo, for example, does a skills, Hatate goes back, and he can't get in the team, that's a good thing. Like, I want that. I want him to take that and go to the next level and produce that week on week. And keeping Hatate in the team, there's no issue with that if you're performing better. So the squad depth, like Franny said, like it's hard to argue against you, Ross, because it is like it's like a clinic tonight. Do you know what I mean? And I'm enjoying it. Everyone in the comments is enjoying it. But it's almost like I feel like we're missing a wee bit of the point too. Like the next bit. And I know we're talking, it's depth, and that's fair enough, but it just comes back to it for me, like these players are only getting a chance, if you know what I mean, Ross, when there's an injury. So
but
it shouldn't really be like that.
Because the starting 11 is performing so well,
of course,
for the most part. Yeah. So these guys are coming in, and they're coming into a team. Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off for that, but no. They're coming into a team. What? They're coming into a team who's just won a treble, right? Albeit that obviously Palma's obviously coming in as what you would think is Jota's replacement. Navrocki has came in what you would say is Starfelt's replacement, but we're signing guys. Now, I totally take it on board that I did want us to sign players to go in, 3 or 4, to maybe go in and
we all did.
Certainly challenge for that 11. But I've also made the reasoning why it maybe didn't happen. But sort of lost my train of thought there. I've not done that for a while. I don't know. We'll move on. I've lost my train of thought.
If we're talking about Bernardo, right? Like if, as you said, like that Paulo Bernardo looks a good player. The prospect we got from Benfica, I like home. All these players look good on paper and what they've shown us so far. I also like to talk about Largi Pelka, because I do agree. I thought he was decent when he started games, especially at Ibrox, albeit Franny pointed out he had that mistake, but he recovered well from it.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think it's just that the comments are conflicted. I mean, Brian Warrior's mentioned like Rocco Vada. Why is he not getting the chance then if Mickey Johnson's getting the chance? And
Aye.
so there's stuff like
It's a
you know
fair
yourself, Rocco Vada's been on fire for the young team and the Republic of Ireland, their Ireland young team as well. So there's issues there as well. Why is he not getting the chance and things like that?
Aye. I was going to make. I was actually feeling like I was going to make a good point there, and it's totally eluded me. But we'll just move on. What you were talking about the first 11,
Yeah.
and I was making the point. Fuck knows.
You said right. I'll go right. You said you wanted 3 or 4 players to win a challenge, but then you give your reasons why you didn't think that happened, and then you lost where you were.
Aye. I don't know. I can't mind. Pressure's on. I've just lost it. It's fine. We'll move on. I can't mind. It's really annoying. I can't mind what I was going to say, but I'll come to you, Franny. So that we've sort of touched on the midfield role, the midfield area. We all know about Awata. I'll not sort of go over him too much. So we'll move on to obviously the wide areas, and people are talking about Yang, and does Rodgers not fancy him now because he's went for Johnston over him on Saturday. But we're talking about the squad depth. Now Yang has come in. I think for me he looks a decent player. He's raw. I'll totally concede that, and he has a bit to go before he's a first pick. Certainly before Palma the now. But I look at it, and he again for me Palma has been brought in to be Jota's replacement. Yang came in, albeit Yang came in before him. But you could say that Yang has been brought in to be a squad player at the minute because you need players who are. You need to bulk out this. You do need to bulk out the squad. And I know I've made the case that the squad needs trimming, and it does. But that's not with guys like Yang. I look at it and I go, right, does Yang bring any less to the table than what a Haksabanovic did? So Haksabanovic is gone. Yang's here now. I don't think at the moment he brings any less, but I think he's got a higher ceiling than Haksabanovic did because Haksabanovic had more than ample opportunity and never done it. And I don't think he's a dynamic enough player for what Brendan. And I know neither is Palma, but Palma's got a pass on him. He can put a ball in a sixpence. But for me, again, I've said that he's raw, Yang, but we're talking about 4 months here. How many players do we have that are raw? Just him and O. But
the way you answered that, just him and O.
Aye, that's it. I would say, but for me, John Kerr there is obviously making judgments on these guys. They've been here 4 months, 4 months of football, and they're being written off by guys like John. For me, listen, some guys need a bit more time than others coming into a team, coming into a new country at a very young age, especially if you're coming from Korea or Japan. And I know a lot of the guys that we've signed for Japan hit the ground running and done really well, but they're older than Yang. I think there's potential there with Yang. I think he's a good option. He's not done it in Europe as such, but I mean, he's been here 4 months. Well, he's been here probably a wee bit more longer than 4 months, but the season has been properly up and running for about 4 months. Are we really going to write this guy off already?
Daniel, for me, is a player. I think when I obviously going on the YouTube reels, it was one that was exciting me when he came in. He had all the tricks and flicks and stuff. I think he does need to work on his end product, similar to Maeda. Somebody that needs to work on their end product, but I think for me, Yang, I think he's a very exciting player. He has a 2 agrees. He is raw, and it's just his decision making for me. I think it's wrong to say he's holding him back. I just think he's got a wee bit to go with that. I don't think he's really been playing professional football for very long. I'm not going to sit and profess to know the quality of the league over in South Korea and stuff. So he's maybe finding it would only be natural, as you said, Ross, as a young lad. It's a whole new culture he's coming over to. Appreciate obviously always already here. Quans came in at the same time. And it might be lazy thinking to think that because he's got two other guys there that it might help him settle. But who's to say O's settled? He's maybe still trying to settle in and stuff. I think even at your age, yourself 40 and me touching 39 and stuff, I think we would struggle to move halfway across the world away over to Asia, like the opposite way, and then adapt within 4 or 5 months and do our job to their best ability as well. So these are factors I think that folk need to take into consideration. For me, I think I was baffled why didn't come on instead of Mikey Johnson, but maybe a lot of that is down to the fact that Mikey Johnson knows the league.
Oh, Jesus Christ, don't say that. Please.
But it does, and it's maybe one of the ones he knows that Yang's...
We know the league, we talk about it.
We've not played in the league. But I'm just trying to make a logical reason why Brendan Rodgers picked fucking Mikey Johnson before anybody, never mind Yang, just anybody. But nah, I'm certainly not writing Yang off. I think he's, like you said, Haksabanovic, I was a big fan of, but he's, for me, Yang doesn't offer any less. I totally agree with that. I'm looking forward to it. I think he might hear stop-start season just, and it'll be one of the ones people might not like it, but I think he has got to have a settling in season. As I say, he's a young laddie, so I think it will just be one of the ones for Young. I'm excited by him. I think I'm basing a bit out on YouTube clips. I think against Lazio he had some good moments, but it was obviously fine. The decision making when it really mattered let him down. But again, to go back to Abada, we kind of said that at times for Abada, and be caveated going, but he's a young laddie, that's got to happen. So I think you've got to be kind of balanced and say that with Yang, and say he's a young laddie, it's got to happen. These kind of indifferent performances as a winger will happen.
Aye, and by the way, Celtic probably are nil. And listen, in an ideal world, you'd want him to come in, hit the ground running, and be brilliant. But I don't even think when Celtic brought him in that they thought he was going to play loads of football. But you can't legislate for Celtic losing Abada. If we've got Abada, then you've got that grace on Yang where we've got Abada that can play on the right, Maeda can play on the right, then Maeda can play on the left, Palma can play on the left. So we've got options there that would have allowed him to come in and sort of feel his way into the team. We've lost Abada. I still sit here and I scratch my head as how Mikey Johnson got picked before him. We'll never work that one out. If Mikey Johnson plays on Wednesday, I'm just going to pack it in, man. But, we'll move on. Listen, I can't say that Yang has been a success. I'm not saying that for a second. What I'm saying is he needs time.
So true, John. So true.
But there's a reason we're bringing James Forrest on. Because Abada is injured. James Forrest wouldn't be getting the amount of game time that he has got recently if Abada was fit. But at the same time, I have to say that James Forrest, he's lost a bit of pace, but he's still got it up there. And he's still a very decent player. And see if he sclaffs that on Saturday, he probably scores. And then we're having the conversation. We turned to James Forrest and he came up trumps for us. He got a goal. That's him scored in another season.
He's on fire, like. He's on fire, like. He's just countering. He's like a karate chopping all these away.
But anyway, I'll come to you and another guy, Stephen. Now, I can't defend this one. He came in, he was injured, and he's now fit. And Rodgers has come out and said that he's fine. It's tough to adjust to the league and stuff like that.
I forgot about him,
but again, you can't just say, right, he's shite, that's it. He's struggling to adjust to life and the faster pace the league. I can't defend this one at the moment though. But what do you think on Marco Telio? Do you think he's just going to be one of the guys that comes in and it's just not going to hurt him, and he'll be a sort of the latest Arzani, if you like, or do you think that given
Dick? I was about to say him. I was paid up to fire Arzani. I was paid up for it. Oh no.
So you do think that's what he's going to be?
I was actually going to say, do you remember Celtic saying that we had Arzani, but they've totally.
But
Aye, well, he got injured in that, but I mean, so did Tilio, funny enough. But look, I'm actually I'm not writing Tilio off, and I know Roger said he's struggling to come to terms with the pace of the game, pace of training, and things like that. Brown Warrior, Tilio Arzani, what a name! But I think what could benefit Marco Tilio in the long run is what Ryan Christie, Christopher Ayer done. Went out on loan to like a Kilmarnock and Aberdeen. Go to these clubs and get used to the league, and as Franny said, be a Mickey Johnson, and then eventually know the league inside out and know who you're coming up against and what stadiums you're going to be playing in, what environments, the physicality, the pace. So Scottish game, where it lacks quality, it's physical and it's fast and it's always flowing. But I'm excited. I'm never going to say he's shite. I haven't even seen him kick a ball. I've just seen the highlights that he played over in Australia, and he looked like he could take players on. I said he looked like Patrick Roberts when he first came in. That low centre of gravity, burst of pace, and he can score wonderful goals. So, look, my hopes are still quite high for Tilio, and the things I've read about him and seen about him, and we all go on YouTube, but we're all guilty of it. So, I'm not writing him off just yet, but I think a loan move would be really beneficial for him because he's not breaking in to the sub bench, or he's not going to break into the team anytime soon, especially, like you said, we've got Palma playing well, we've got Maeda playing well, so the wings are they're showed up for now, and Tilio needs a chance to play somewhere else in January for 6 months or a year.
I 100% agree with that, and I think it's been proven down the years. When you look at guys, we always go back to Christie going out and loan to Aberdeen. Going out and loan doesn't always work. Tom Rogic came in and he didn't hit the ground running for Celtic. I think he went away back on loan back to Australia, maybe, if I remember right. And then he came back and he was an absolute sensation. Look what he done. So you just never know, but you don't write that guy off. But I agree with you, Stephen. If he doesn't get anywhere near, if he's fit and he's not getting anywhere near the team, then maybe a loan spell in January, or even if it's the summer. What are we saying there?
Ross, this is why we have a pool of players for injury suspension. Palmer looks slow, so no excuses. A good tradesman never blames his tools, so Brendan Rodgers should get them playing instead of being stubborn.
Fair enough.
A good tradesman blames apprentice.
Aye. Right, so we touched on Mikey Johnson, James Forrest. So we'll just one final player, and I'll let you both have your say on this guy. I'll come to you first, Franny, and it's O, who is splitting opinion with the fans at the moment, and I fully understand why. For me, I'll use that word again. He is raw. He's been here almost a year now, but I liked the look. It's a bit too much information there, Stephen.
Oh Jesus!
He's been here. I think is it a year?
Can't be
a kicking arse off it anyway. Yeah. But for me, when he first came in, he looked good. Strong, physical. He sort of, I would say, linked the play up. I don't want to compare him to Giakoumakis because he's not the same player, but in terms of his link-up play, I thought it was better than Giakoumakis because they're two different players. Giakoumakis is a penalty box player, a predator. That's not his game. But he's been brought in. He was always going to be Kyogo's understudy. He cannot get into that team because Kyogo is phenomenal, basically. And he's coming on in wee fits and starts for me, and he's desperate to get a goal. He needs a goal. and he's snatching at everything. And it's just one of the things with a striker. They go through these spells, and it looks worse on him because he hasn't been getting that run in the team previously when he did look all right. He's still not getting that run, and his confidence is so low. He needs a goal for me to get his confidence back up. Games and minutes is what he needs, but we can't offer him that because he's not starting. But he's absolutely not starting before Kyogo. So it's a difficult one. He's never going to be, as I said, have the prowess and the predatory sort of skills a Giakoumakis. But I'm not writing him off. I think there's a player in there. I think he could be a decent player for Celtic. But in my opinion, if there was one place we should have signed someday in the summer, it was 100% another striker. And that's not me saying, oh, it's not good enough. It's that if Kyogo... I'm not even saying that because I say shit happens, but you know what I'm getting at.
Please don't. Please don't.
I'm not saying it, but what's your thoughts on O? And then, Franny, once you're finished, just you jump straight in, Stephen, and just give me your thoughts.
Is that another player I really like? And like Klinsmann's actually came to watch him a couple of times, so obviously the national coach sees a bit in him. He narrowly missed out in the World Cup and stuff. I think for me, right, he did have a no bad 6 month last season. I think for O as well, you touched on that Rangers game where we got beat 2-0, where he hits the post. I mean, you could maybe label it Mikey Johnson as well. Two guys, Mikey Johnson, if he scores in that, I know we're going to win the League Cup final, but that League Cup final game where Julian scores, Mikey Johnson's through 1-on-1 and puts it wide. He scores that, he could have an absolutely different Celtic career. You could
but he missed it because he's pish.
I know. But then O obviously has that chance where he hits the post against Rangers. For me, he does everything right. Like Dinks, it shows a bit of confidence. Dinks it over the keeper, hits the post, and you just never know. It could have kicked on from him. But I thought last season when he came in, he done okay. He obviously was competing against Kyogo, Giakoumakis. This season, he's only had Kyogo to compete against, and Kyogo's just, like you say, it's as much as I would like him to get minutes, it's trying to make a legit case. Stephen's just farted
there. He's went on TikTok.
The stomach was sore.
You can't make a decent argument to really to bring a win for the start. So he's unfortunate. I don't think he scored this season. I totally agree with you, Ross. He's absolutely desperate for a goal. And you just never know. With strikers, he gets a goal, gives him that confidence, that wee monkeys off the back and stuff. But I think within the fan base anyway, I think O's biggest problem now is, and I agree that him and Giakoumakis are totally different players, but we're all guilty of comparing players in the same position. He's kind of folk will maybe looking at saying, "Oh, he was Giakoumakis' replacement," and I think his biggest problem now is Giakoumakis is ripping it up, and for Atalanta, I think that's his biggest problem right now. Is he's no scoring, Giakoumakis is, and that's all folk are looking at it that way.
And international as well,
and it's no as simple as that.
Aye, Giakoumakis didn't want to be here.
Aye.
Fair enough. Aye. By the way, I see the people that are saying, they're writing O off. I'm not arguing against him. I'm not saying they're wrong because I totally see why they would think he's not good enough. I'm just not quite ready to write him off yet. But I'm also not going to sit here and argue against people that have got that opinion because I can totally see where they're coming from. Yourself, Stephen, just on O.
I mean, Jimmy Grant in Europe up front, who was he more comfortable with, Mate or O? And it really baffled me against Atletico why he didn't bring O on, just for a wee bit of physicality up top the last 10 minutes or so, throw the ball up to him and see what he could do, regardless if you could trust him or not. It's 10 minutes of a football game, and he could have made a difference in that time he was on the pitch. But I like O. I'm like Franny. I have a lot of time for him. We've seen fits and starts what he can do. Mark Nugent said it as well. He's better in GG in a lot of ways. I think his link-up plays better. I think he can hold the ball in better. Giakoumakis is very instinctive, one touch bang. He was just hitting balls in for fun towards the end at Celtic in terms of goals. But I think O needs a run of games, and it comes down to that, really, doesn't it? Or else he has to be the super sub and come on and score every time he comes on the pitch, and then maybe something can develop from there and he can start a game with Kyogo or without Kyogo. But it's baffling me where he is in Rodgers' plans at the minute. I don't get it. In Europe, he doesn't seem to be getting a chance. In the league, he still gets used, and it's only for like 15 or 20 minutes. I think what we've seen him come on against, was it Lazio? And I thought he spread the ball well and stuff. And there's a lot of promising things about him. And yeah, he's raw, and the people are saying, why was saying raw? But he is. He's got a lot of talent. He just needs polished. And I think for me, he'd be a good striker. Whether he'd be ever first choice for a prolonged period of time, I don't know. But backup, I think he is good enough. But I do agree with you, Ross. I think we should have signed a third striker to come in, add more competition, and maybe a bit more flexibility within that area as well, just in case there's a touchwood injury to one of the strikers. So these things have to take into account. But I like O. I've got a lot of time for him, and I just hope he hits it. I hope he gets a couple of goals soon, and he really kicks on, because there's a lot there. And like you said, Franny, Klinsmann came and he was sitting eating a Kilmarnock pie in a cold stadium. Albeit O was terrible that day because he was trying too hard. But I can see potential in him.
I would agree with that. What I would say is, though, I don't think that O, as much as I think he's all right in that, I don't think he'll ever be our number one. I don't think we could ever have him as our number one first choice striker. I don't think he'll ever be good enough to be that. But like you say, Stephen, good enough. Well, hopefully good enough as an understudy. Bit to go, needs a bit of confidence. But that's us sort of covered the squad depth. I think we can all agree that the squad's fine. I'm right, and yous are wrong, and that's it. But no, we've covered that. And listen, people have made pros and cons. You look at the defence, I think we're fairly stacked, certainly as in the centre half area. I concede that there's a bit of business needs done, whether it be a starter or an understudy in the sort of full-back areas. I think that midfield area, I think we're in decent shape. People could make the case that we maybe need to add a bit more quality on the wide. We are people can make the case for that, and I totally take that on board. I don't disagree with it. And again, the centre, sort of the striker area, I think we can all agree that we maybe need one more in there. Certainly when we've got this, well, we've not got it, but the Asian Cup's coming up. We have a few players out there. I don't know if we'll need to cancel a couple of games. I don't want us to do that, especially if the lead's still only 5 points. But time will tell. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see what we do in January. But we'll just finish the podcast off with looking ahead to Wednesday night's game. Franny, just come to you. How you think it's going to go, and just your score line or your score and lineup predictions.
I think the team might come out to prove a point, obviously, to show that Saturday was a blip, like you said at the start. The podcast was like, these performances will happen, but then you wouldn't put it past us going on a run of wins. And I think you might find, I know St Mirren have been playing really well, but it's at Parkhead, it's on the bigger park. It'll maybe allow you Palmas and Maeda's a lot more space to kind of use. Well, Maeda to use his pace, Kyogo to use his pace, Palma to use his trickery, because there'll be the spaces opening up, if you like, and stuff. So I think it might be an easy game. I'm not going to sit and say it'll be a high scoring game, but I think it might be a fairly comfortable afternoon for us. I think we'll go with the exact same team as we did on Saturday. I don't see any reason just on the back of one performance to change the team. I think it could be a nice message to them to say, go and prove that was just a blip, that performance, and prove what said online was just a blip, which I believe it is. So for me, I think it's the same lineup as Saturday. I can't make any argument for anybody not and maybe Ralston being, I just think, depending on
I think Roger said in his press. Sorry, Fernand. Roger said in his presser day, Johnston will be fine.
Right. Well, that was the only reason I could sort of make an argument for a change is maybe depending on how Johnson was. So, well, for me, it's to say I'm going the same starting lineup as we had against Hibs. Bernardo keeping his place, and let's say Johnson keeping his place, and I think it'll be a comfy enough 3-0.
Fair enough. Stephen, what about yourself?
Pretty similar to the way Franley's thinking. I think Stephen Robinson's done a good job with St Mirren. They were flying high. I think that they still are. I think they got a good win on the weekend as well. So they're dangerous. He always sets his team up well against us. They're very defensive hitters on the counter. They're a physical team as well. So that has to be watched out for. And Ross, you're famous. We'll go the whole season unbeaten. Next game we get smashed up by St Mirren. So these comments can come back to haunt us in some shape or form. But it's a game where I think it's under the lights, Parkhead. So I mean, so everything's going in our favour in that aspect of things. I think it'll be one of them ones, like Franny said, just proved that's just over us now. Get into it again, attacking performance right from the start. Lineup for me, I think it'll be the same. I know Rogers talked about rotation, but we've seen no evidence of it. So I think he'll stick with the same lineup that started at Hibs, unless Johnson's still injured and Ralston comes in. I'll go with a comfy 3-0. I'll stick with Franny. I'll go with that one with him.
Right, fair enough. Well, I'm a bit different thinking for you. I think he will change it up just purely because of what he has said. And I know, Stephen, you've said there that he's shown no evidence of changing the team. I get that, but I think this will probably be a game at home where he will change it. I don't think for an away game he would be too keen to change it like that game against Hibs. It was always going to be a tough game. I think he wanted to go with his on paper best 11, whereas Wednesday night, albeit St Mirren are playing well, I think that he'll probably take an opportunity at home to maybe change it up a wee bit and just sort of give guys a wee bit of rest. My team would be obviously the goalkeeper in the same back four, midfield, McGregor, O'Reilly, and I think he'll maybe go with Turnbull just because he fares better at Parkhead. And then your wide men, I think he'll give Palma and Maeda a rest, and I think you might see hopefully Yang and not Johnston. And listen, I've been getting into Johnston. That's no fair, but he's not good enough.
If I show you the chat, our group chat, getting into
aye. So I'll go with Yang and Forrest and Kyogo, and I think 2-0 Celtic. Hopefully comfortable. Hopefully, fingers crossed. But
before we wrap things up, Ross, just a quick one again. Just remind everybody again. We are on TikTok, as we've been saying throughout the show, so get involved with it. You can see there, just Endless Celts, like you search up here for YouTube, and we'll grow our wee community on TikTok as well. There's 4 videos up. I'm sure there's plenty from tonight's podcast that we can stick up over the coming days. That's for a great laugh and some disagreements in between that. And then also just a reminder, the Super 6, get involved with that. Midweek games, get the scores in nice and early, and we'll revisit the leaderboard again on Friday.
Absolutely. And to carry on for that, if you have liked what you have seen tonight, if you are regulars or newbies, whatever it may be, hit the wee like button, subscribe, and tell all your friends about me. But listen, that's the end of the podcast. I've thoroughly enjoyed it. A nice wee Monday night talking about poor performance and getting. I really enjoyed diving quite deep into the sort of squad there. It was a good chat. I enjoyed it. Did you enjoy it?
Yeah, it was brilliant. Brilliant. You think coming off a draw at Easter over wasn't much, but we made something out of that. Like, so well done, Ross. Unbelievable.
Aye, we've done all right. Well, listen, that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thanks everybody for watching, and I'll just pass the reins over to my wee sidekick there, Step Hen.
Wow. And as I said, until Friday, stay well and keep safe. Hail, hail.